welcome to this episode. This is a 6-month update on our power station. Libby isn't here today. She's on a girls' day out. Her and some of the ladies from the park decided that they wanted to drive into Yuma to go see a movie. I think she said they were going in to see Wicked. I think that's what she said. Anyway, I'm sure that when she's back for the next episode, she'll give you an update on what happened with that. But it's nice to see that she's out being able to do some things. I felt it was important that after we've now been using our power station for several months, over 6 months, that it would be nice to do an update. Our first video that we did on this, I think I might have come across a little bit disappointed with what we ended up with. I think in my head, the power station was going to do a lot more than what it's actually capable of doing. And I had watched several YouTube videos that were like, oh my gosh, you can plug an RV into this thing. And my buddy's got this big RV, and so we plugged it in, and look, it works, everything is running. And look at this, it runs the microwave. And look at this, it runs the air conditioning. And yeah, it does. It does all of that, but not for very long. You know, it's very limited. But now that we have been using it for 6 months, we've really determined that it is a vital part of our boondocking, and it is a vital component if we are trying to save a few dollars at campgrounds that charge for power, like this one. And the charge that we have this year is 21 cents a kilowatt hour for power. It doesn't seem like a whole lot, but when I compare it to the charge that we have for power back in Alberta, it's about double. So being able to save a few bucks on that, the power station has become kind of critical in that discussion. I will also mention an important note about this. After our first video was put out, a little bit more work, and we found out that our rig batteries were faulty. And I'll talk about the rig batteries in a little bit, but they weren't holding a charge. So every time I plugged the power station into the rig, it was diverting all kinds of power to try to get those rig batteries up to full charge. The 12-volt systems are critical in an RV. You have many control panels that without power, they don't work. And then you have a whole lot of systems that start to fail because the control panels aren't working. So the batteries in the rig, when you plug them into shore power, it's designed to make sure that those things stay up to full charge so that all of your 12-volt systems continue to work properly. So once we discovered that we had faulty rig batteries, we replaced them, and things started to work a lot better. I feel a little more comfortable and confident about plugging the rig into the power station when I need to, which to run the full rig off of it, believe it or not, is not very often. It has happened, but it's not a common thing. So what we have determined is that our rig uses 10 kilowatts of power per day. And the majority of that is the fridge and the water heater. The necessary 12-volt systems don't take up a lot of power, but they do. But this is our power usage, 10 kilowatts a day, fridge, water heater, and the necessary 12-volt control panels, the systems panels. So the fridge and the water heater account for 9 out of that 10. So we've had to look at this to see about the propane use, and I'll get to that in just a second, but on average, when we've been boondocking, we get about 2 weeks of boondocking on 1 tank of propane. We have 2 tanks. I keep one open. When it's empty, I open up the other one, and then I go and fill the one that just emptied out. If I am able to get propane for $3.72 a gallon or less, it is actually cheaper for us to use propane. Even when we're in a park like this that has power available, it is less expensive for us if I get propane that is a little less expensive, $3.72 a gallon. Now, I've got it for much cheaper than $3.72 a gallon on this trip. At this place that we are currently at, the closest propane is at a gas station within walking distance of the park, and it was significantly more than $3.72 a gallon. So in that case, if that's what I'm using to fill up with propane, it is actually less expensive for me to just run it on electricity. If we take the fridge and the water heater out of the equation, our rig only uses 1 kilowatt of power per day. And I've tested this twice. We have shore power, and there's a meter, and you can go and read the meter every day, and it's 1 kilowatt of power. I also then turned off everything. The fridge, the water heater were running on propane. I plugged the rig into the power station and then just kept an eye on it to see how much power it actually used in a 24-hour period. And it's the same. It uses 1 kilowatt of power. Now, our Anchor power station has 2,048 watts, or let's say 2 kilowatts of power. The necessary 12-volt systems, that's just the control panels, use 50% of the available power per day, 1 kilowatt. Our 2 times 200-watt solar panels charge the system on average 50% a day. So if I'm down to 50%, I'm pretty sure that by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it'll be back up to full charge. I'm kind of at a break-even point here. If I'm running the rig 100% off of the power station, just the critical components are taking up half of the charge, and the solar panels are keeping it back up to full charge. But what that means is I can't do anything else. I'm not running fans. I'm not running air conditioners. I'm not running microwaves. I'm not running the lights. Nothing else, just the critical components. I'm at a break-even point with the amount of panels that we have at this time of year in this current location. And that's important for me to kind of get that figured out, to know what it is that I'm actually needing. Now, the other part of that is the rig also has power. So in our rig, we have 2 Series 27 12-volt batteries in the rig. Each battery is capable of 96 amp hours, but you never want them to go below 50%. The critical 12-volt systems use 83 amps a day, but because we have 2 batteries, that keeps those batteries above 50%. So I need those 2 batteries to run the rig, the critical systems. It's a break even. On top of the rig, we have 2 200-watt Go Power solar panels, and on a sunny day, they produce the same amount of power as our portable solar panels. And that is enough to keep the rig charged, and that's it. So if all we're out doing is boondocking and we're relying 100% on just the 12-volt batteries, we have enough to just run the critical things in the rig. And I think this is where things started to go sideways when we were first out and using just the rig batteries. Before we got the power station, not realizing that every time we turned on the lights, every time we used the water pump, every time we ran, anything that required power, 12-volt power, it was taking away from the available power in those batteries. And over time, using lots of lights and all these kinds of things, it was bringing these batteries down below 50%, and we believe that that's what happened, is they eventually just stopped holding a charge. And so the power station came into the picture at around that time, when we realized that the way that the rig was built is just to keep those 12-volt systems alive, not to run anything else. If you want lights, if you want water pumps, all those kinds of things, I needed something a little bit extra. And so that's why the power station has now come into the picture. So we've discovered that we can let the rig do its thing with the required 12-volt systems. Basically, I just let the rig batteries run the 12-volt systems and let the solar panels on top of the rig keep the rig batteries up to full charge. And then I don't have to worry about anything else. I just don't run anything that requires either 12-volt or 110-volt unless it is going through the power station. And that way the rig can just do its thing. Those batteries are going to stay fine. They never go below 50%. All is well. So the main uses that we have for 12-volt outside of the critical 12-volt components, the things that the rig needs to just keep running, outside of those, our biggest things are lights and fans, and of course, charging up all of our electronics. So what we've started doing is not running lights in the rig at all. We've picked up a lot of rechargeable camping lights over the years, and we're now using those. And of course, charging all of our electronics. It's a different world. We need to be connected. So all of our charging abilities, we need to have the 12-volt systems available to charge up cell phones and all this kind of stuff. Now, as far as the lights are concerned, I've actually found this has been kind of a neat thing. It's a throwback to our earlier camping days when we were camping in a tent. We had lights, and one of the systems that we had were these lights that blew up. You could, and they had a little solar panel built on top of them, and you just put them out on a picnic table during the day, and it was enough to charge up the battery so that when you turned them on at night, you had them. And so we kind of got into this thing years ago about using rechargeable camp lights, and so we have a variety of those. And I thought it would be worth it to go through and show you the style of camping lights that we have and how we're using them in the rig. Well, these are the 5 lights that we have that we use so that we don't have to use the lights inside the rig. And the power station has 5 USB connections, 3 for USB-C and 2 for USB-A. And unfortunately, all of these lights take the USB-A port, so we didn't have enough. So we just went out and picked up one of these little guys, which gives us 5 USB-A and 1 Type-C, and that just runs off of the 110 plug. And combined, all of these, if they need to be charged, take up less than, on average, about 33-34 watts. So it doesn't take up a whole lot of power to be able to get these all charged up for the day. I bought each one of these lights for a very particular reason. These, because it has a light on the bottom, also has the light on the top, and so these have been very handy for hanging up over top of our reading chairs. So at night we each have a light that comes down. If we want to just illuminate the entire living room area, we can use the upper light. This one I got specifically for use in the kitchen. It has a dial that you can have either the front and back together or just one side of the light, and it's dimmable just with a little dial. But what I also liked about this is that in situations where we have absolutely no power at all, this has the ability to at least use a handle on the top, and you just crank it and you can get this to charge up. And what's also nice is that this one, actually all of these have the feature to be able to charge up a phone or something off of a USB. And so this was part of the emergency kit, so to speak. These ones I really liked because they have a variety of colors. So softer, you know, really bright, soft. But if you press and hold, then you can dim these down to wherever you want. So I bought this one specifically for our bedroom and bathroom, just to be able to have, you know, some light in those areas. And that's the 5 that we have. Of course, on the other side of our power requirements are everything that runs off of 110 power. And we have a few things. Number one is my Traeger for cooking. That is used every single day, almost without exception. In fact, I've got a video coming up on how to get the most out of your Traeger coming up very soon. But I use that for cooking, and we do a lot of things in that Traeger. I bake, I smoke sausages, I grill, I do things on low-slow heating, all kinds of things. And so it get used a lot, but it requires a 110 outlet. I make yogurt every single week, and I also make bread usually once a week, sometimes twice a week, sometimes once every couple of weeks, but I do make bread. And so I have a device that I use as a proofer for the bread to rise, although I have found that being down in Arizona, I can also proof bread out in the truck. I just put it in the truck, and it's warm enough in there on a sunny day for it to rise to raise the bread. But for the rest of the time, I use the proofer. But I've also discovered that that particular unit is amazing as an incubator for yogurt, and it requires 110 power. Our Wi-Fi that we use in the rig, we do try to limit its use to no more than 2 hours a day, an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening. We both have computers. Libby's got her laptop. I've got my desktop. These are occasional uses only. I'm not using the computer every single day. And her laptop, it just requires power to be able to charge it up, and then she runs it off battery. But then, of course, we've got a lot of things that do require charging. So when we look at our needs and our lifestyle based on this full-time RV experience that we're having, we have discovered that we cannot do this trip without a power station, without some type of external power. And I've mentioned this in the past. I didn't want to get a generator. I don't want the fumes. I don't want the noise. I don't want to have to bring extra gas with me. I know there's a lot of pros and cons of both, rechargeable power station and gas-powered generators. But for me, I don't want a generator. So the power station is it. And we cannot do this trip without one. It's become kind of a vital component. I also don't want to make this an ad for this particular model that we're using, but I will say that having the 30 amp outlet available has saved me several times. Most recently, we were in a situation where the rig battery, it wasn't below 50%, but it was getting down there, and for whatever reason, it just wasn't putting out enough power for the landing gear on the rig. And at that moment, just where the truck was parked and its angle, I wasn't able to get it in to be able to plug it in to the rig to be able to get the landing gear up. How convenient it was just to be able to take and plug the 30 amp outlet from the power station into the rig. Boom, I've got all the power I needed to be able to work with the landing gear. So that 30 amp outlet has become really beneficial at some times. Some of the things that we've looked at on a need to have, nice to have basis, I need to get another 1 or 2 solar panels. The 200 watts that we have, and of course, on a really perfect day, they're at about 83% efficiency. Most days, they're not even quite that high. So the extra solar panels give me just more options. One, I'd be able to charge a little faster, and the extra charging capability needed, especially on days that are overcast. And so a solar panel that's only giving you an input of, maybe 15 or 20% of what it's capable of doing. If you only have 2 of those panels, it could take 12 to 14 hours to charge up our power station. So an additional 1 or 2 solar panels. So I think that's going to be in our future. I don't know exactly when, but I'm pretty sure within the next year I'm going to be adding another couple of solar panels. My guess is I will probably pick up 1 or 2 400 watt panels and go from there. The nice to haves, however, I don't know if I will ever get these. I was really considering getting the expansion battery that is available for this particular rig. It just gives me an additional 2 kilowatts, and it would allow me to connect to the rig a little bit more often. It would allow me to keep the basic systems running longer, especially on cloudy days. But the reality is it doesn't really push me much further than what I already have. And the reason for that is, as I mentioned earlier, the rig, just in its basic bare configuration, is taking 10 kilowatts a day. Even if I have 4, I'm not that much further ahead. I am a little bit, just not a lot. So we're still going to be relying a lot on propane for fridge, water heater, those kinds of things, furnace. We will worry about the other electrical needs with the 1 unit that we have right now. I'm just seeing that the expansion battery would be a nice to have. It just gives me a little bit more flexibility. So if I'm looking at this from a summary perspective, Libby and I have camped in tents for decades. Our honeymoon, more than 45 years ago, was spent camping. So it's something that we have done all our lives. However, RV is a different type of camping. In the RV, we now have these critical 12-volt systems that require power in order for them to run. So it is vital to have some source of power. So in the rig, it has the batteries and it has solar power, or it has solar panels on top of the roof that help to keep those batteries up. But as I've identified, those batteries are good for just the base system. Anything else I want to do, lights, fans, anything else, requires additional power. And so the power station has now become the critical component into this mix for us. With the way our lifestyle is right now, the kind of things that we want to do, the things that we like to do, how much light we like to have, the fans that we like to run, charging all of our devices, all of those kinds of things without putting any more stress on the rig batteries. The only way we can do that is with an external power source. And so this power station has now become a critical component. And I don't think we would be able to do this trip for as long as we want without the power station. So my bottom line is I'm really glad we have it. Now that I have more understanding of exactly how it fits into all of this, I'm recommending that anybody that wants to do the long-term RV has some kind of an external power, and I'm just a really big fan of that renewable energy source of being able to charge it up using sunlight. So that's it. That is my update on the power station. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you in the next episode.